All right, guys, so we're working on the carburetor on this 700 RMK. This is the Kehlin D Slide carburetors. So I got the carb off, obviously, and the bowl off of it. So I always like to get the bowl off really gently, take it off straight down, and inspect the fuel inside it. And then I dump the fuel into a glass container and just kind of look at it for debris and water specifically. And then start disassembling some parts of the carburetor and just inspecting and making sure everything's clean. So first thing we do is we're going to take out the float bowl. So there's this little pin here that goes right through, and you can see how on one side there's a little edge on it, and then on the other side it's flat. So that's the side you have to tap. So what I do is I just give it a very, very gentle tap with just a pair of side cutters, and I just tap the end of the screwdriver very gently, because the last thing you want to do is break one of these towers. Because if you break one of these little aluminum towers off, you need a new carburetor. Now, these ones are welded on, or at least casted a little bit higher up with support here, but a lot of them, they don't have this piece in here, so they're just strictly towers. So you got to be very gentle when you're tapping on the pins. So anyway, see if we can get that out. There we go. May need just a tiny little bit more of a tap. There we go. Pushes right out. Pull this straight up. As you can see, you've got your needle on it. That to the side. And then we have, obviously, our seat here, where fuel comes in, comes up, fills the bowl. We've got our main jet, and then down in this hole, we have our pilot jet. I always like to take the pilot jet out, most importantly, because that's responsible for your idle, and just very slight off idle running. So the holes on it are very small, and therefore they get plugged up really easily. So I like to take that out and just inspect it, make sure the holes are clear. So spins out and then dump it out. There it is. And then compressed air down into this hole. The main jet we can take out as well. And then the last thing, which just the due diligence, is the air screw. Unscrew the air screw and just make sure that that orifice is clear as well. So when you take your pilot jet out, these are different shapes and sizes. Oftentimes it's just a tiny little jet where the head of the screw is right here. But this one here has a little bit taller tower on it. So anyways, you've got two little holes going this way, straight through. Turn it a little bit, 90 degrees, there's another two holes. So look through those holes, make sure they're totally clear. Those are clear. And rotate them. There's some fuel in there, I'm just going to blow out gently. So sometimes you get a fuel bubble in there. And you can see those are perfectly clear as well, actually. So this one was already nice and clear, but it's always nice to double check it. If it's hard to see through, you can always hold them up to a light and just make sure that they're clear. Hold them up to a light and stare through them. There's also a hole right down the middle. So what I like to do is just, if you see fuel in it, so say for example you've got a carburetor or an engine that's not running right, not idling. When you get it apart, you want to find out why it's not running. So when you see oil or you see fuel inside these little holes, it's just a little bubble of fuel. You want to blow it out very gently with your mouth, not compressed air, but your mouth, just to make sure that you're not blowing debris through. You don't want to blow debris through. You want to make sure that you see the debris and that you confirm that that is what's clogging the jet, and that's what the problem is, so that you can explain that to the customer. If you just take it out and you see a little bit of fuel in there and then you blast it with compressed air and it blasts the fuel through and then blasts any debris that might have been in there, you really don't know what was in there causing the problem. You blasted it through and you didn't get to actually identify the issue. So Just very gently, I always blow the fuel bubbles out first with my mouth, and then just make sure I look and confirm that any debris in there is indeed in there, and anything that's clogged is in there. So now I just run through some jet drill bits. I've got little jet drills, so these little tiny drill bits, and they fit exactly into these holes. So when they're clogged, or if they're slightly clogged, you can run a jet drill through them very gently just to clear them through. So this jet drill fits perfectly through. And I just run those through and then just clear out the hole down the center as well. And make sure that's all clear. I think I need a little bit smaller one for this actual center hole because it's really small. Okay, then I finish off with compressed air. Double check again, give it a visual. We got a nice clear hole down through the center, probably hard to see. And then we got the sides perfectly clear. So then we'll go into our main jet. So we'll undo our main jet. I just use a little crescent wrench here. These aren't very tight. Jack it loose. Take it out with your fingers. These main jet holes are quite big, so they don't generally get clogged unless a snowmobile sits for a long, long time. You can see how big the hole is. So put that to the side. Pilot jet to the side. Be very careful of that washer. You don't want to lose that washer. So this one's kind of pressed in there, so it's not going to fly out. But a lot of times the main jet has a washer that's attached to it. You don't want to lose that. And then I'm going to take out my air screws. So I'm just going to show you guys how to work these air screws. So these air screws are obviously adjusted, very specific, okay, for each engine and each area that you're riding in. So when I mean area, I just mean your altitude and your temperature. So this is what you adjust for basically your air mixture. So some of these are fuel screws and some of them are air screws. If the screw is on the air intake side, which this is the air box side of the carburetor, then it's an air screw. And some of these screws, they're on this side of the carburetor, on the intake side or after the fuel, so they're a fuel screw. So I know a lot of the Polaris rack style carburetors on the triples, they're fuel screws. And they're usually a bigger knobby screw, almost like this one. But on these ones, this is an air screw. So you can see right here, it moderates the airflow coming into the carburetor. So we're going to first screw it in. So what these do is they bottom out. You screw them all the way in and they bottom out very gently, and then you unscrew them a certain amount of turns. So you'll have to check your specs on your specific machine on what that is. Generally, it's a 1 turn to 2 turns. So this one, I'm just going to check what it was at. So I'm going to go in and check and see what it was set at. So we go half a turn, 1 turn. Oh, we can't see. There, and it's bottomed out. I can't turn anymore. So it was about 1 turn out. So I'm going to take it all the way out now, and then when I clean that up and put that back in, I'm going to go all the way into bottom it out, and then I'm going to screw it out 1 turn. And I'm just going to keep that same spec. I'm not going to go into the specs and check, because the sled was already running really good in our area, and I don't need to go monkeying around with that. You know, you can adjust those if you're going to do a lot of spring riding. You know, it's going to be around that -5 to 0. You might want to adjust those a little bit and screw them out a little just to give yourself a little bit more air, because it's going to be, you know, boggy or a really low idle. The other thing is there's a spring in here that you don't want to lose. Whoop. You want to dig that spring out before you start firing compressed air in there. So take that spring out and just make sure that it goes back in. There, now that's all clear and good to be blown out with compressed air. Your main jet clear out with compressed air. Your fuel needle, fuel seat, and pilot jet. And then all these other little air orifices as well. Just blow them out. I don't go full blast. There's no need to go full blast, but give it a little wipe with the rag, and then I'm going to give it a blast with the compressed air.
Get that nice and clean in there.
That'll do it for the carburetor. Now we're going to give the needle screw just a nice little wipe down, clean up. And then just to make sure there's no hair or little dusty particles on the floats, just going to give the floats a little blast. Make sure you hold on tight to that needle. You don't want it to go anywhere. You don't want it to fall off. You want to make sure it stays on that little hanger. You can see that. Yeah, make sure it stays on that little hanger. And float bowl's ready to go. So we'll start reassemble. And I always kind of want to make sure I've got a clean place to do everything. So I got a nice clean rag, and make sure my hands are clean. So these rags are these gloves were used to disassemble. So I'm going to take them off, make sure everything goes back nice and clean. So main jet, snug it up, not too crazy. Pilot jet. Make sure my screwdriver is clean. Not the cleanest rag, but it's clean, because you don't want to have something in there, a little piece of seed or something on the end of your screwdriver, and then jam it in there and transfer that and replug your pilot jet. So you screw that down in. It's very important to make sure you get the right size screwdriver for these pilot jets. They're brass, so they're very soft metal, and they strip easily. So I modified this screwdriver to make it the right size for a pilot jet, and then it's narrowed down to go down into the hole to get it. So you strip those out. Sometimes they're very difficult to come out, and you strip them out. Oh boy, you're in trouble. Air screw. Goes back in. So again, we're going to go right into bottom out, and then turn it out one screw, one turn. And so we'll just gently turn in. It bottoms out easily, right there. Then we're going to go out one full turn. So we're going to go half a turn, one full turn. Okay, and we're going to double check the other carburetor, which I've already cleaned. Just going to double check that we're at one as well. You want those to be equal. Exactly one. Perfect, and we'll sync those carburetors later anyways. So we all dialed in. Now, very carefully put our float bowl back in. Make sure that your needle goes down inside the orifice. Make sure everything goes gently and smooth. Nothing ever needs to be jammed or rammed with these carburetors. Put our pin in. There we go. There we go. And then I just give it a little tap, just with a pair of pliers, because you just don't want to tap it too hard. It's not necessary. So you can see. There's no real load on that anyways. Just as long as it's seated in just slightly. Just needs to be snug. Okay? Can't come all the way out anyways, because you can see the shape of the bowl. It's shaped here. So if that pin were to come out, it's just going to hit the side here. No problem. Okay, everything's back in. I was double checking my head. Pilot jet, main jet, needle and seat. Floats are back in. They move freely. And then we're going to put our bowl back on. There it is.